here to explore some really, really key subjects in light of the pandemic and just reflect on some ways that we can be a bit more positive in what we're facing. So I'm joined here by a very, very special guest. Now, if you'd like to introduce yourself, just tell us basically who you are, what you do, why you're passionate about what you do, particularly in the field of mental health.
Sure. Hi, Sadie. It's really nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me. My name's Amy. I'm a GP with an interest in occupational medicine and physician health as well. I'm really passionate about wellbeing because I see a lot of my own colleagues and a lot of people that I work with suffering because they don't necessarily have the coping skills, or they don't necessarily understand the events or the things that have been happening with them. And so my aim is to just navigate a way for them and help them move forward toward a more supportive place for them to be able to live a life that's thriving, flourishing, and that they're enjoying.
Excellent. I think it's interesting for me, particularly in the area that you work within, because a lot of the time, and I'll be completely honest here, when I'm having conversations about the medical professional being quite stressful and quite intense and quite high pressure, people sometimes make the assumption that if people work in the medical profession or know about medicine, know about the body, know about biology, that they understand equally about mental health. And that's quite a big assumption to make. Is that something that you come across, that people think because people know about physical health, they should know about mental health?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I think that there's probably a better understanding than the general public about mental health, but that doesn't mean to say that there's a specialist knowledge about it.
Yeah.
And I think what's really key here is that when you're a doctor, that doesn't make you any less of a patient. So you might be able to treat the people around you, and you might have special skills and training with regards to your ability to look after people, but that doesn't mean that you can necessarily put those skills in a reflective manner towards yourself and be able to look after yourself. And I think that's a really, really key concept here, that actually doctors should still be, and nurses and anybody in the healthcare profession should still be afforded the right and the importance of gaining medical help and understanding the importance of having an individual look at them as an individual and a patient as well. So just because you're a doctor, it doesn't mean that you can treat yourself and look after your own well-being.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like the fact that you focus on everyone's only human, and no matter what you do as a job, it doesn't negate the fact that you're a human being. And sometimes I get, because you and I and many others work in the field where we're helping people to maintain their mental health and their well-being, I kind of get a sense of guilt if I'm struggling, and think like, I must have all the answers. What is wrong with me? And it must be similar sense of pressure and guilt in the medical professional, because you're thinking, well, I'm helping fix people, I'm helping them with their health and well-being, I should be able to cope myself. And do you think that means there's a reluctance for people to speak up and share if they are struggling?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it's really, I think there are lots and lots of different factors actually which prevent medical professionals from seeking help. I think one of those factors actually is quite significantly guilt. But the other is about stigma as well. There's quite a lot of stigma around mental health, and that's not just within the population outside healthcare professionals, but also within healthcare professionals as well. Healthcare professionals might not want to seek help because of the concerns and of the negative connotations that they feel mental health elements might have, or well-being might have. And I think I just want to broaden the concept here of well-being, not just being about mental health, but also about physical health, emotional health, and psychological health as well. So I personally look at well-being as being more of an umbrella term, and there being lots of different facets within it. And so I think it's really important for people to look at their own selves and think, what is it about my well-being that's important to me? Because somebody who's sitting next to me might look at their physical well-being and say, actually, that's far more important to me than my mental health well-being. Not to say that it's not equally important, but just they want to prioritize one over the other, whereas someone else might say, actually, my psychological well-being is far more important to me than my spiritual. And so I think it's just really important to kind of emphasize that there are lots of different facets to well-being, and it's not just a singular concept.
Yeah, I like that. I like the umbrella term, like it's a holistic approach to you as a whole, as opposed to like all the different components, because if one is suffering, then it will inevitably have a knock-on effect on the others. And I sometimes talk to clients about doing like an energy audit and thinking about their energy rating in relation to their body, their mind, their spirit, and just, you know, exploring all the different states and what feeds that energy source and what actually takes away from it. Because like you say, you can't just focus on one aspect, because inevitably then it's not going to be successful as a strategy, is it? So yeah, I like that a lot. So you said at the beginning about thriving and being able to cope, and right now that is difficult for a lot of people, particularly obviously the medical professional. But what do you see as being instrumental in people being able to cope right now?
Oh, that's a tricky
It's a
question.
big question, I know. How do we fix it?
So I think a lot of things that I'm hearing at the moment, from people who I'm working with, from friends, and also reflecting on my own personal experience too, is it's the conflict in emotion actually that's quite difficult to bear. So actually, when we think about what's happening with our own selves, it's actually, I'm feeling guilty because of X, Y, and Z, but then at the same time, I'm happy that I'm in my own home. You know, I'm safe, I'm protected. And it's that kind of conflict in emotion that's kind of giving us concern or making us feel agitated or discomfort, you know, uncomfortable, because we're like, how do we deal with this? What do we do with these emotions? Because there are so many emotions flooding through our mind at the same time. It's really, really hard to sift through them and filter through them, because, you know, it's just like heavy traffic, and what do you pay attention to? And I think what I've learned is through a lot of studying and also personal reflection, is actually trying to slow your mind down, which isn't an easy thing to do, but trying to slow your mind down and paying attention to what's happening. So just as if you pay attention to like a scratch that you might have on your arm, or, you know, if your arm was hurting, paying attention to the emotions that you're feeling and understanding actually what's brought that emotion to me. Is it a positive emotion? Is it a negative emotion? Because although we try to shy away from negative emotions because they don't feel good, actually they're probably trying to teach us something, and they're probably trying to protect us from something. So acknowledging that, embracing it, and understanding where it's come from, I think is really, really crucial around this time. And that's not to say that, you know, we welcome them, or, you know, yes, we want to feel bad. I don't mean it in that way. But what I mean is actually just figuring out, why is it that I'm feeling this, and then trying to process it in a beneficial way, to reconstruct our narrative in a positive way, to change maladaptive behaviours actually can really shift us into a more positive energy, more positive state, and can really change our perception around what's happening at this moment in time. So I think that's probably quite key.
Yeah. No, so looking at what's triggering these emotions, and what signal they're serving, so what they're telling us about our situation and how we're thinking about that situation. Yeah, that I understand. That makes sense. I mean, I think what you say about the mention of conflict is really, really relevant. And I think conflict between how I'm feeling, you're feeling, so-and-so's feeling is particularly prevalent. And, you know, people talk to me about saying they feel guilty if they're enjoying time at home with their kids, and that they feel bad because other people are suffering and other people are really struggling or isolated on their own, and they're thinking, this is great, I'm cooking, I'm doing yoga, I'm redecorating, I'm playing with my kids, I'm homeschooling my kids, this is great. You know, everyone's situation is so different, isn't it? And I don't know if you've seen there's a meme and all sorts going around saying that we're all in the same storm, but we're all in different boats. And I quite like that as an analogy, because it's really, really true. And everyone's situation is different. You know, I don't have kids, so I'm not trying to battle with working and childcare. I can appreciate how difficult that is, but I'm not in that situation. And, you know, people are trying to work, other people are furloughed, people have really got trauma, loss, grief, others haven't. It's all so different and difficult to try and understand. And like you say, as such, all the different emotions you're going through, it's just like, whoom. So slowing that down is, I like that a lot. So once they've slowed it down and understood what's triggered certain emotions, say fear, fear, for example, about the present situation and what's ahead. So what do they do next with that?
Sure. So understanding and naming the emotion is actually the first step in moving forwards, because once you've named something, you can manage it. It becomes less scary and it becomes less overwhelming. And then when we have, I don't want to call it a problem because I don't see it as a problem, a challenge, shall we say. When we have a challenge that we want to overcome, we can think of strategies. So we all have our own way of dealing with things. So you mentioned fear. So I'm going to take that example. So we can reflect, and this is another thing that I think is really, really helpful at this time. So we can reflect on our own selves and our own being. What's important to me and how can I get through situations? So it's very hard in times of stress to think of how you cope and how you best cope. Because when we're stressed, we don't think well, our cognitive processes, our thinking processes, they're not streamlined because we're under significant emotional distress and mental distress as well. So think of a time when you have come through a situation really, really well, whether that be an exam or whether that be a bereavement or, whatever your life circumstances have been. Think of a time when you've overcome something and think about what it was that you needed at that time. Was it practical advice? Was it emotional validation? Was it esteem validation? Was it connection? Was it your own space? Because we all have different needs. We all are different beings. And that's the beauty of us. We've all walked different journeys. So what is it that you needed? And think about how you can use those strengths, use those previous coping mechanisms to help you with this particular emotion that you're having. And by using previous coping mechanisms, you can try and navigate your way through current circumstances. So now is not the time to be learning new things. Now is not the time to be pushing yourself to a situation where you have to fight the fight or be the best you. Now is the time to be holding yourself. Now is the time to be just living through, because we don't know what this situation is going to hold, and it's tough, like you said, tough for everybody in different ways, different shapes, different forms. So the fact that we can just get through these situations, I think, is amazing, and we all deserve a pat on the back for that. So I would say just think about previous situations, think about your previous strengths, and think about how you can maybe pull them from the past into the present moment and get through.
Yeah. I like how unique that focus is on as well with that approach, because as you say, we've all got different needs in different situations, and while some people might need that emotional cuddle and hand holding through it, others might just want to be left alone and is completely not what they need. So having that self-awareness and that self-acceptance of this is me and this is what helps me in these situations, and drawing on those experiences as lessons to get you through the next obstacle, I think is really, really empowering, really, because it gives you back a sense of control, doesn't it?
Absolutely
Which everyone needs right now, because it does feel just like that we can't control anything and that we're powerless. So taking that back in some form is important. So is there anything else you've been working on with their clients or people you've been talking to?
Yeah, so there are a couple of other things. So I think one of the other things is practicing the art of self-compassion. So being able to be kinder to ourselves is one step in the right direction to being kinder to other people as well. Because at this moment in time, I don't think anybody is functioning with all cylinders firing. That
is not just me.
At best, we're probably at 85%, and that's at a push. Most of us are way below that. I certainly am. And so I think just realizing that everybody's in that situation. I know that we all talk about it, but actually knowing that we're all in that same boat. But if you can be kind to yourself, you're able to be kind to others as well. And just give yourself that space to make mistakes, to oh well, my house, if you're one to have a tidy house, oh well, my house isn't as tidy at the moment, okay, I'm just going to leave that. Or if you're a gardener, oh well, I haven't done the gardening this week, whatever it is that you normally do, just give yourself that break. And the other thing I think that's brought up a lot of thought around this time is kind of three things: meaning in life, gratitude, and the importance of positivity. So those things are quite important at this moment in time, I think.
Okay, so particularly when you say meaning in life, not to sort of put you on the spot here, but this is a phrase that you hear a lot generally anyway, but we're hearing a lot now, and this sense of values, priorities, purpose, what am I moving towards, what is my meaning? How do people channel that? How do the people use that? If this is something that people haven't really reflected on in the past, how is this something that they can help sort of get them through this time?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I don't think that meaning in life or purpose, values, identity, it's not something that we can come to a conclusion in an instant.
Yeah.
It's an evolving process. It's something that is a life journey, and it's also not a fixed point either. So what my meaning in life, so personally, what my meaning in life, what's important to me, what my values and position are today, might be different to what my position is in 5 years' time, depending on the life circumstances that I've gone through. And they certainly are different. My values and my identity and my purpose are certainly different to how I was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and even, you know, looking back when I was an 18-year-old girl at high school. I mean, I'm a completely different person. So, you know, it's an evolving process. So I don't want to make anyone feel that it's a process by which you have to have an answer, or by which you have to feel pressured by it, but it's something to give thought to, because by giving thought to it, it empowers you, and by empowering you, it allows you to take charge. It allows you to channel your energies in a way that you think might be more directive and might be more authentic to you. Living a life that's congruent to your motivators, your own meaning, your own purpose, can actually really, really improve well-being. And that whole umbrella term of well-being, when we understand our identity, actually, we behave in ways that reflect our values. So we become more congruent with our overall meaning in life. We become more congruent with our purpose by our actions, by our speech, by our behaviors, by our emotions. So we become all-encompassing, if you see what I mean. We become reflective of what our thoughts are, what our behaviours are, and that then leads to us being a more authentic representation of ourselves. And what that does is it improves our motivation, it improves our energy, it improves our positivity. It enables this, what we call a growth mindset, to form or to develop, and that's hugely important for creativity, for health, for amazing benefits just moving forward in life. And that allows us to thrive, and we all have the capability of doing this. We all have the ability to do this, but to improve our lives. But what we need to do is spend time with ourselves, reflecting, and I don't mean like sitting in a deep dark room, or, you know, but I just mean thinking about what makes us happy. Is it gardening? Is it spending time with your family? Is it making money? Is it working? Is it driving cars? You know, whatever it is that's important to you, think about that, and think about what you feel like when that's taken away from you, and why is it that you feel like that. And then if there are things that are added into your life, say you haven't seen a family member for a long time, then suddenly you see them. If that makes you feel great, why is it that it makes you feel great? What is it about that makes you feel great? So it's not about, oh, I like to spend time with my family. What is it about that action that brings you joy, that brings that importance to you? So it's about kind of going to that deeper level of analysing of what is important to you, and just by slowly reflecting on yourself, you might be able to find out what's important to you, what purpose is, what your identities are, what your values are, and slowly become more congruent in your actions moving forwards. And people find that when they start to behave in these ways, their well-being improves, and there are several studies that have shown this, and several research articles that have shown this type of behaviour.
I love the emphasis on being consistent and congruent, because we all know what it's like to be doing something or in a position that just in your gut it doesn't feel right, it doesn't sit right, and you just think, I don't like doing this. And you know, it could be a relationship you're in, it could be a job you're doing, you know, a friend that you've got, but if you feel that I just don't feel that sits right with me and who I am, and it's that core who I am that I think sometimes people aren't quite sure about. And yes, I completely agree that I think we need to alleviate the pressure of everyone learning a new language and doing all these wonderful things with this time off, because it is pressure, isn't it? And it does make people think that they're a failure if they haven't, you know, learned some brand new skill over this time. But I think if they did use this time to just really get that depth of who they are as a person, and you're really, really right about going down those layers. And the same with gratitude. You know, people say, oh, I've been doing a gratitude list each day and I don't really see the point. And I said, well, what sort of things are you writing on it? And they say like family, health, pets, home. And you're like, well, no, why? What? Who in your family? Why are you grateful for them? Like, really go into this detail. I said, your list should be completely different to every other person's, because it's really getting into that detail of why you're grateful for that person, and really experiencing everything that you associate with that thing or person or situation, whatever it is you're grateful for. And I think it is that detail that makes it really impactful, as opposed to the surface level stuff. But let's face it, when we're busy and hurtling through life, we only tend to think we've got time for surface level stuff and to touch on subjects. But now I think we can get that depth to really get to know ourselves, accept ourselves, like ourselves at first, that self-compassion, being a bit kinder. I think right now, particularly for people who are trying to juggle, taking care of the house, taking care of their family, whether that's their kids or their relatives, and do their jobs, I think they need to, like you say, just accept that some of the times their standards might have to drop, but that's okay, that's all right. If everyone's still getting fed, it's all right. Everyone's dressed and fed, it's fine. But just having that relaxed attitude, I think, to ourselves makes a bit of a difference. So I think I'm going to pull that to a close on that note. But I've really enjoyed our chat. I've found it really positive, empowering for me and myself, as well as everyone listening. So I really appreciate your time, and perhaps we can do another one soon.
Absolutely, I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me today, Sadie.
Thanks very much. See you later, Amy. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. See ya.